What is a better world? It's a new answer to an old question. It's a fantasy or wish being realized. It's innovation and transcendence. Repetitive, inefficient work will be replaced by lean production. Dangers will be forecast, making safety the norm. Distance will no longer limit our vision, enabling more vivid and diverse education. Medical services will be available at home, providing better care to all. In a better world, connections do not exist only between people, but also between vehicles, machines, and buildings. A new digital ecosystem will emerge in the cloud. Computing is at our fingertips. Facilities can independently think, learn, and solve problems. Intelligence will enter all industries and reach every corner of the globe. What you are familiar with will be refreshed. What you take for granted will be improved. Innovation is the result of connection, and transcendence is enabled by intelligence. The equation for a better world has been written. In the past, we contributed to the best of our ability. In the future, we will gather all there is and grow through connections.
There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things from far away. The special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we design. Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake.
Check, check. This is the English channel. This is the English channel. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the English channel. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Check. This is the English channel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hast du jetzt offen?
Ja, hat funktioniert.
Okay.
43动拐次下升线，广州。
What is a better world? It's a new answer to an old question. It's a fantasy or wish being realized. It's innovation and transcendence. Repetitive, inefficient work will be replaced by lean production. Dangers will be forecast, making safety the norm. Distance will no longer limit our vision, enabling more vivid and diverse education. Medical services will be available at home, providing better care to all. In a better world, connections do not exist only between people, but also between vehicles, machines, and buildings. A new digital ecosystem will emerge in the cloud. Computing is at our fingertips. Facilities can independently think, learn, and solve problems. Intelligence will enter all industries and reach every corner of the globe. What you are familiar with will be refreshed. What you take for granted will be improved. Innovation is the result of connection, and transcendence is enabled by intelligence. The equation for a better world has been written. In the past, we contributed to the best of our ability. In the future, we will gather all there is and grow through connections.
There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things from far away. The special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we design. Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Oh, a million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
What is a better world? It's a new answer to an old question. It's a fantasy or wish being realized. It's innovation and transcendence. Repetitive, inefficient work will be replaced by lean production. Dangers will be forecast, making safety the norm. Distance will no longer limit our vision, enabling more vivid and diverse education. Medical services will be available at home, providing better care to all. In a better world, connections do not exist only between people, but also between vehicles, machines, and buildings. A new digital ecosystem will emerge in the cloud. Computing is at our fingertips. Facilities can independently think, learn, and solve problems. Intelligence will enter all industries and reach every corner of the globe. What you are familiar with will be refreshed. What you take for granted will be improved. Innovation is the result of connection, and transcendence is enabled by intelligence. The equation for a better world has been written. In the past, we contributed to the best of our ability. In the future, we will gather all there is and grow through connections.
If you'd be my happiness, if you ever wonder right. There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things from far away. The special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we design. Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million
What is a better world? It's a new answer to an old question. It's a fantasy or wish being realized. It's innovation and transcendence. Repetitive, inefficient work will be replaced by lean production. Dangers will be forecast, making safety the norm. Distance will no longer limit our vision, enabling more vivid and diverse education. Medical services will be available at home, providing better care to all. In a better world, connections do not exist only between people, but also between vehicles, machines, and buildings. A new digital ecosystem will emerge in the cloud. Computing is at our fingertips. Facilities can independently think, learn, and solve problems. Intelligence will enter all industries and reach every corner of the globe. What you are familiar with will be refreshed. What you take for granted will be improved. Innovation is the result of connection, and transcendence is enabled by intelligence. The equation for a better world has been written. In the past, we contributed to the best of our ability. In the future, we will gather all there is and grow through connections.
If you'd be my happiness, if you ever wonder.
Ni hao, welcome to this year's Huawei Innovation Day. My name is Mariam Theobald and I'm expert for digitization. My name is Bernhard Theiler. I'm from Deutsche Mittelstand EV and I'm responsible for your questions. So just enter your questions and we will answer them. 2020 was a special year, perhaps also a particular year, which offers us the opportunity for accelerated change towards a progressive, digitized, and above all, sustainable economy and society. The task now is to build a common platform to answer urgent questions that we did not have to ask ourselves until recently due to the positive economic development. The Huawei Innovation Day invites the actors for a discussion. This is you, the European SME sector and politicians. Together we look at benchmarks of German SMEs and explore how a European context can look like to enable SMEs to innovate. What do we mean when we say innovation? Innovation is a very emotional term. It may mean excitement, but also anticipation of exponential growth. Let us take these emotions into our programs, and we will start with very inspiring keynote speakers and the panel discussion. We invite you to ask your questions. Should we forget an issue, you can also use the Q&A session. Let's start with our host. David Lee is Huawei's president for the Western European region, and he also wants to welcome you warmly.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming to today's Huawei European Innovation Day. At our previous two events, in Rome and Paris, we spoke about how to innovate for digital Europe. This year, we'll look at how digitalization can unleash the full potential of European SMEs. SMEs are the backbone of the European economy. They are central to the EU's industrial strategy. Europe's 25 million SMEs account for 99% of the enterprises in the region. They account for more than half of Europe's GDP and provide 2 out of 3 jobs in the region. But there are still huge gaps between SMEs and large enterprises. Gaps in digital strategy, in talent, in technology, and in capabilities. Digitalization can help close some of those gaps. During the pandemic, digitalization became especially important. In September, Vodafone's SME report found that the most digitalized SMEs have identified new business opportunities at more than twice the rate of the least digitalized firms. Digitalization can help SMEs boost productivity and innovate their products and business models. But first, they must be able to go digital. This is where Huawei can help. We want to use ICT to help European SMEs remain competitive. Digitalization can help by helping SMEs achieve 2 key goals. First, it will help them enlarge their customer base. With digital technologies, SMEs can reach global customers just like large enterprises. Second, new technologies like AI can help meet customer needs more accurately in a smarter way. This will create a shift from mass production to mass customization. This will help SMEs tell their own beer and diaper stories in the digital era. The new EU leadership says it wants to make the Europe's digital decade. At Huawei, we'd like to build upon that goal, making this the digital decade for European SMEs. We will do this based on 5 core principles. First, as I've said, we will help SMEs go digital. This will bridge the gap between SMEs and large enterprises. Second, we will help build digital infrastructure and grow a digital ecosystem. That means working with leading open source foundations like Eclipse. In particular, we want to offer Europe more digital innovation platforms and an alternative ecosystem. We are doing this through Huawei mobile services and open source AI projects. We believe this will help incubate more startups here. Third, we will work more closely with European partners on joint innovation. With our open labs in Munich and Paris, we will bring together local partners to jointly create state-of-the-art solutions. In total, we work with more than 1,000 enterprises across Europe. Fourth, we will help with digital upskilling in Europe. Since 2011, Huawei has built ICT academies in 12 European countries, including the UK, France, and Germany. We have trained more than 1,000 lecturers for these academies, and we train about 1,500 students every year. Fifth, we will never forget that data belongs to customers and users. We will focus on breakthroughs in infrastructure and key technologies. But we are more than happy to leave data management and operations to our local partners. These are our 5 commitments to you. Huawei faces some tough challenges these days. But let me tell you this, we will not stop innovating. Whatever happens, we will work to meet our obligations to customers and partners. We will survive and we will thrive. We will keep contributing to innovative new technology because innovation drives progress. For that reason, I'd like to conclude my calling on everyone here today to help create a level playing field for innovation that powers the digital economy. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, David Lee, for your welcoming words. So to enable SMEs is in the focus and fair competitive conditions. Now we welcome Amar Alcazar. He is the State Government Commissioner for Innovation and Strategy of the state of Saarland. And before we start, he will give us a brief starting speech about SMEs and innovation.
Auf den wirtschaftlichen Big Player Deutschland schaut, dann sind es die Konzerne, die als erstes ins Auge fallen. Sobald man sich dem Phänomen aber unserer wandlungsfähigen, resilienten und seit Jahrzehnten zu den führenden Wirtschaftsnationen gehörenden Volkswirtschaft jedoch nähert, dann fällt schnell ins Auge, dass das Fundament dieser Erfolge der deutsche Mittelstand ist. Dann fällt ins Auge, dass das weit gespannte, belastbare und flexible Netz aus wirtschaftlichen Verbindungen und Kompetenzen im Wesentlichen von den vielen Mittelständlern geknüpft wurde und von ihnen zusammengehalten wird. Dafür gebührt den vielen Unternehmerinnen und Unternehmern, die hinter dieser Leistung stehen, in höchstem Maße unsere Anerkennung. Aber auch dieses Netz ist nicht unzerreißbar. Es muss gepflegt und gestärkt werden. Zum einen durch einen politischen Rahmen, der unternehmerisches Handeln und die Innovationskraft der Wirtschaft fördert, der Entscheidungen schnell macht und die mittelständischen Unternehmen von bürokratischem Ballast befreit. Denn das macht sie resilienter gegen neue Herausforderungen des Marktes und des internationalen Wettbewerbs. Hierfür brauchen wir unter anderem mehr E-Government in der Verwaltung. Im Saarland arbeiten wir deshalb beispielsweise an einem Digitalisierungsgesetzbuch. Es wird die Hindernisse für digitale Verwaltungsleistungen aus dem Weg räumen. Und es ist mir ein Anliegen, dass die Digitalisierung in Politik und Verwaltung die Dinge einfacher und insbesondere schneller macht. Auch das ist wichtige Innovation für den Mittelstand und schafft Ressourcen für Innovationen im Mittelstand. Im Blick auf die immer weiter gespannten Netze der globalen Wirtschaftsbeziehungen, ich denke hier natürlich auch an die mittelständischen Hidden Champions in Deutschland, ist es unumgänglich, Innovationsstrategien über die nationalen Grenzen hinauszudenken. Hier braucht Innovation nicht nur einen nationalen Rahmen, sondern zumindest einen starken europäischen Anker und internationale Partner, wie beispielsweise Huawei. Zur Stärkung des Netzes unserer mittelständischen Unternehmen gehört insbesondere auch das Setzen von Innovationsimpulsen und die Förderung von Wandel durch Innovation. Politik und Regierung sind aufgefordert, die Innovationskraft in Zeiten des wachsenden Veränderungsdrucks zu stärken. Mit Blick auf Disruption und Digitalisierung brauchen wir Strukturen, die den Unternehmen die Türen zu agilen und nachhaltigen Innovationsstrategien öffnet. Gerade auch für den Mittelstand ist hierbei der Ausbau von schnellen Datennetzen mit Breitband und 5G bis hin in den ländlichen Raum wichtig. Die Datenleitungen sind das Einmaleins für gelingende Digitalisierung und für gleichwertige Lebensverhältnisse in allen Regionen. Wir benötigen zudem eine umfassende Innovationsförderung, einen starken Technologietransfer aus unseren hervorragenden Innovations- und Forschungseinrichtungen und zusätzliche Anreize für eine zügige Digitalisierung der Betriebe. Wir brauchen einen dynamischen Strukturwandel und neue innovative Geschäftsfelder, gerade auch für den Mittelstand. Ich setze mich deshalb dafür ein, dass Innovation und Technologietransfer immer auch vom Mittelstand her gedacht wird. Dafür durch neue Orte für Vernetzung und Innovation, durch neue Formate für Wissenstransfer, durch starke Konzepte für innovative Gründungen und durch das Aufgreifen von Fragestellungen und Ideen aus dem Mittelstand. Deshalb ist der Austausch mit den Entscheidern des Mittelstandes wichtig, damit wir gemeinsam die notwendigen Innovationsimpulse für ein starkes Netz der Zukunft setzen. In diesem Sinne wünsche ich allen Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmern am heutigen Huawei Innovation Day interessante Impulse für neue Projekte und Innovationen.
Hello, Mr. Alcazar. Thank you very much for your nice words. Welcome to Huawei Innovation Day. I'm happy to see you in person because I have some follow-up questions. I'm happy too. Thank you so much for having me. And this is also the program. Well, during your presentation, I was wondering, you are the representative for innovation and strategy. At the same place, I somehow remain silent that since 2019 you have been CIA of Saarland. Can you say you are Dorothee Bär of Saarland at a state level? Well, if you wish to say so, you are free to do so. Dorothee Bär is busy with digitization. We still have in Germany this division between CIOs, who are responsible for the operative side of information technology, and the ministers and secretaries of state, who are responsible for digitization also in the world of business, in politics and administration and health, are not only responsible but also paving the way. But thankfully, these two lines are increasingly blending because it's difficult to demarcate them. Who are you the contact for? Well, the question is, well, we have two large areas for which politics and administration is responsible. First, digitization of our own responsibility, of our own administration, those who are immediately under our guidance, the state government, the state administration, but also the subordinate authorities. We support municipalities in digitization. Everywhere where there is a need for further efficiency increase, we are present, and also improving the context for the citizens, for example, by creating end-to-end offers. The performance or the services of the government need to be completely digitized, which is one area. The other area, which is probably much more interesting and much more multifaceted, is digitization of society and economy. We cannot go it alone. We can only help. We can create framework conditions, for example, for the industry and the companies. We can also motivate those who care for others. For example, in the health sector, by promoting digitization in health. For example, we are debating the question, how can we increase the share of telemedicine? At times of Corona, it's probably crucial to have a first advanced diagnosis before somebody steps into the office of a physician in things like flu or influenza or other diseases that you need not to be hospitalized for, or where you do not need any special care. There's a whole range of issues in society and business where we can put some triggering moments. You mentioned so many important points. Let me address both points. First, the target group, and then also the process. Let's start out by wondering about the process. To innovate in the startup speak, you need new structures. My question is, from your point of view, how can you streamline agile processes, implementing them to really cater for the needs of the companies and to explore them? Well, first of all, we looked carefully what are the processes that are too time-consuming. For example, submitting applications for administrative permits and so further, the building permits, for example. At times it takes quite a lot of time, also due to the fact that we have not made wise use of the existing tools. So for example, if you want to build something and you have to drop a stack of physical papers on the threshold of the building authority to get the building permit. All these things need to be registered, need to be archived in the authorities. So there is so much cumbersome processing of such paperwork. So very early on, we realized we want to pick up on this in a strategic perspective. A fully digitized building permit request is not only the request or the application as an online application, but also the further processing. For example, binding in all the public entities, so that in the end we will be much, much faster than in the past in releasing such a permit. At the end of the day, this is of crucial importance for business, especially the SMEs. It becomes more and more time crucial. So, which is a good point to become much, much faster. May I pick up on e-government and e-signature. Well, e-signature, that was one attempt of digitizing the administration. Entrepreneurs were highly frustrated. How can you make sure in the future that you find solutions that both citizens and companies can trust? Well, frankly, at times in Germany, we have a cultural inclination towards perfection. For example, in engineering and engineering sciences, it boosted our quality, no doubt about that. And that's also why we are leaders. In terms of digitization, however, you need to weigh it up against speed. Well, as early as towards the end of the 90s, as one of the first countries worldwide, we promoted the way towards a digital signature. We were the trailblazers. But Then it became a sticky patch. It became so complicated that e-signature could not get a foothold in our country. I just talked a while ago with the digitization official of Estonia. They are proud of being the trailblazers. They introduced e-signature in 2006. We needed almost 10 years more than them. So it's not only about good ideas. We need to streamline them, to make them less complex. Although some things need to be adjusted with hindsight. One thing that we are doing in Saarland, and we are the pioneers, we have a digital screening. We will push through a digitization act. We have more than 2,000 regulations in laws and decrees. We have examined them. We have checked whether they really need to be put down in writing or whether they can be replaced by an email with a digital signature. And our finding is that more than half of those regulations can be replaced with, or can be eliminated without replacement, or can be replaced by an e-signature, just by a very simple procedure, not the highly complicated e-signature, because the risk of failure is so small that simplicity wins over absolute perfection. So make many things less complex but more successful. I find this highly interesting that you brandish this motto, less complexity in the design process. You speak so much about convenience or user-friendliness. You mentioned it at the beginning. You have a special situation. You need to be user-friendly for two groups, both for the administrative officials and for the companies. The question arises, how can you make sure that at the end of the day, such government tasks are not handed over to the companies? Well, it's the primary task of any politician to compensate or to consider carefully where are things implemented most efficiently. So it would make little sense to push over things to other stakeholders. Well, effectively, we are quite efficient in doing so. The majority of all tasks, for example, in the area of public services, are carried out in such a way that we provide platforms, respectively, that allow the companies to act as easily as possible. And I have a background as an entrepreneur. It's a good example. Estonia is a good example, both for the citizens and for the small and medium enterprises. The submission of tax returns has become much easier, so easy that I can do it on my own without being helped by a tax consultant. Within 2 minutes, because I have stored all the templates and I can pick them up and use them again and again. So with a relatively simple solution, fairly undercomplex, you can make life easier for both sides, both for the administration and for the company or the citizen. So you would not ask whether you push around the task. No, we need to reduce the complexity of tasks altogether. So, which is, of course, an important point. I think platforms can help a great deal. One final question. Do you have any wish for the benefit of your employer, the federal state of Saarland? Well, my wish would be that we, even in future, can muster the agility and can also take along the citizens in this state towards a viable future, because you may have so many ideas in politics and in the government. If you cannot convince the citizens and the companies, it won't work. And that's my utmost desire, that the people pass along these lines towards progress, even though some things might appear cumbersome or too fresh, too new, but in the end, everybody will benefit. That is my wish, to take people along so that we can go the way together. Thank you so much, Mr. Alcazar, for this frank talk, and thank you very much for giving your input for Huawei Innovation Day. Super, great, thank you. So, exactly, we looked at the federal state level the Bundesland. Now we want to enlarge our vision towards Europe as a whole. We have invited Mr. Kurz. He's a member of the European Parliament. He's also a member of the board of SME Europe. He provided an input on the topic of Together for a Strong SME World.
As a member of the Economics and Monetary Affairs Committee of the European Parliament for a second 5-year period, I can tell you that the economic crisis due to COVID-19 is even more complicated than the previous one. According to the European Central Bank's predictions, it will take the Eurozone until the autumn of 2022 in order to cover the ground lost due to the economic effects of the pandemic. Things will be even more difficult for the member countries of the Eurozone, with economies with major structural problems and a great dependency on tourism, the services sector, small and medium enterprises, and very small family-owned businesses. This is the case for my country, Greece. At the same time, it is obvious that the new normal that we strive for will be different from what we considered to be normal in the past. The European Commission has set and the European Parliament has approved 2 major objectives for the next years: digital transformation and a shift to green policies so as to control climate change and its consequences. The digital and the green transformation go hand in hand in shaping our economic future. Small and medium enterprises, especially those that feel the pressure of yet another crisis, are faced with a major challenge. They have to adjust to a new, very competitive, globalized, and in the process of being digitalized environment. Next Generation Europe, the accommodative policy of the European Central Bank, and special programs funded by the state budget of member countries of the European Union offer to well-managed SMEs the ability to finance a strategy of innovation that will greatly improve their competitiveness and their prospects. This is where the digital economy and its major international players enter into the play. They can provide the necessary means for digital transformation and facilitate process innovation for different sectors of manufacturing and especially SMEs. They can assist in the digital automation of manufacturing processes and of supply chain processes. Big data analytics can help bring about a reduction of costs and an increase in efficiency. Customers can be reached in a more effective way, and products and services can be better adapted to the customer's needs and preferences. The decision process can become, due to data analytics, more targeted and effective. Cloud computing also offers new opportunities for SMEs. SMEs can also boost their marketing strategy with the help of e-commerce. Artificial intelligence can play the role of innovation catalyst. I'm not an expert to analyze how digital innovation can boost the performance of SMEs, but I would like, as a politician, to describe the framework within which we can create more opportunities for SMEs. I believe that the transition from Trump to Biden offers the possibility for a more productive approach to international relations and multilateral cooperation. I think that we have to address issues of trade imbalances and security issues associated with technological progress in a constructive spirit. In my view, the EU should try to develop its digital economy by investing more funds and innovative thinking, not by creating obstacles to its competitors. Finally, the global protagonists of the digital economy that have a strong presence in the European Union should improve their relations with the tax authorities and contribute more to the financing of the social security system. They have the economic means due to their enormous success, and they should not avoid their obligations in a way that penalizes others, including SMEs. The future belongs to all of us, provided we can organize it the proper way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtzes, for this perspective from the EU, but I wonder what does the German SME sector says. This is very interesting. So we asked Andres Keck, president of German Mittelstand, what is your opinion? What boosts the SME sector?
Wir müssen die Innovation treiben. Wir müssen innovativer werden. Ohne Innovation geht unsere Wirtschaft den Bach runter. Echt jetzt? Es geht uns doch auch so gut. Läuft doch. Naja, wenn wir ehrlich sind, läuft es ganz okay. In einigen Branchen großartig, in anderen dafür eher gruselig. Warum sind Innovationen eigentlich so wichtig? Innovation ist gelebte Anpassung und Weiterentwicklung. Beides kennen wir aus der Evolution und beides ist elementar wichtig, um sich in den Märkten zu behaupten. Jahrtausende waren die Dinosaurier die Könige der Welt, bis dann ein Meteorit die Lebensbedingungen drastisch veränderte und die Anpassungsfähigkeit dieser Lebewesen schlicht zu gering war. Selbst mächtige Wesen wie der Tyrannosaurus Rex wurden Opfer dieses Wandels, obwohl sie eigentlich perfekt auf die damaligen Lebensverhältnisse angepasst waren. Was lernen wir daraus? Nun, im Kleinen sind wir alle irgendwie innovativ und entwickeln uns weiter. Wir steigern unsere Effizienz, entwickeln Produkte und Methoden weiter und wehren uns so mal mehr und mal weniger erfolgreich gegen die Konkurrenz. Allerdings schwirren, um im Bild zu bleiben, auch einige Meteoriten in unseren Sphären, die unsere Rahmenbedingungen drastisch verändern. Algorithmen, künstliche Intelligenz, 3D-Druck, das Internet der Dinge oder auch die Robotik verändern, wie wir Produkte und Dienstleistungen entwickeln, produzieren und vertreiben. Und nicht nur das Wie, sondern auch das Wer das herstellt, ändert sich. Maßanfertigung wird in Bereiche vordringen, die jetzt noch völlig von Massenproduktion beherrscht wird. Technologien wie Blockchain werden Prozesse und Zusammenarbeit im Unternehmen, aber auch über Unternehmens- und Ländergrenzen hinaus hinweg sicherer, transparenter und vertrauensvoller machen. Wer allerdings bei einem neuen Auftrag erst nach Anfrage durch den potenziellen Kunden anfängt, sich mit den Möglichkeiten solcher Techniken zu beschäftigen, läuft Gefahr, dass andere das Rennen machen, die solche Lösungen längst haben. Wer die vielen neuen Optionen der Digitalisierung nicht zumindest für sich und sein Unternehmen prüft, handelt aus meiner Sicht fahrlässig, wahrscheinlich sogar grob fahrlässig. Wer wird zukünftig vorne dran sein? Diejenigen, die darauf setzen, dass alles so weiterläuft wie bisher, oder diejenigen, die neue Technologien smart einsetzen und bessere, coolere und günstigere Produkte damit anbieten. Aber welche Innovationen sind jetzt für wen eigentlich hilfreich? Das kann ich leider nicht pauschal beantworten. Aber es hilft vielleicht ein Blick auf die unterschiedlichen Bereiche im Unternehmen. Zuallererst denkt man wahrscheinlich an die eigenen Produkte und Dienstleistungen. Hier ist jeder gut beraten, darüber nachzudenken, wie sein Angebot mit neuen Technologien smarter und besser werden kann. Aus Marketing-Sicht also die Frage, welche Nutzen und welche Mehrwerte geboten werden können. Neben den Produkten sollten wir aber auch einen scharfen Blick werfen auf unsere Prozesse. Hier wird Qualität erlebbar, hier wird Effizienz gesteigert und manchmal leider auch viel Geld liegen gelassen. Amazon hat nicht immer die besten Preise, oft sogar dieselben Produkte wie viele andere, aber fast immer die besten Prozesse. Technologien wie KI, Blockchain können helfen, Prozesse zu optimieren, zu automatisieren, Fehler zu vermeiden, Kosten einzusparen und vieles mehr. Wer das heute nicht im Blick hat, muss sich nicht wundern, wenn Wettbewerber aus welchem Winkel der Erde auch immer einem mit Qualitäts- und Kostenvorteilen das Leben schwer machen. Lassen Sie uns auch einen kurzen Blick werfen auf das Thema Vertrieb. Welche Bedeutung haben soziale Medien und Suchmaschinen? Wie wichtig sind digital präsente Marken geworden? Wie funktioniert heute der Vertrieb? Wie wird der morgen funktionieren, wenn vielleicht smarte Maschinen ihre Bestellungen autark platzieren? Können Sie damit schon umgehen? Ist das relevant für Sie? Wird es möglicherweise bald relevant werden? Wie geht es weiter bei Services und Dienstleistungen? Welche Aufgaben werden zukünftig Roboter übernehmen? Welche Services erwarten die Kunden zukünftig von einem? Was lassen sich Wettbewerber einfallen, um einem die Kunden wegzuschnappen? Wie entwickeln sich die Preise? Wer ist in der Lage, preisaggressiv Märkte zu erobern, weil er technologiebasiert schlicht kostengünstiger produzieren kann? Für den einen skizziere ich hier ein echtes Horrorszenario, für den anderen ein Universum an Chancen. Innovation, liebe Unternehmerinnen, liebe Unternehmer, fängt im Kopf an. Innovationen vorantreiben ist eine Sache der Einstellung, dem Mut zur Veränderung, der Durchsetzungskraft gegenüber dem inneren Schweinehund und der Durchsetzungskraft gegenüber Verhinderern und nicht veränderungsbereiten. Es ist eine Sache des Wollens und letztlich des Machens. Denn Machen ist wie Wollen, nur krasser. Ich freue mich deshalb außerordentlich, dass Unternehmen wie Huawei dem Thema Innovation so viel Raum geben. Wir sind hier gerade im Huawei Open Lab in Ismaning, wo gemeinsam mit großen und kleinen Partnern neue Ideen getestet und ausprobiert werden. Gute Sache, wie ich meine. Insofern sage ich ganz herzlich Dankeschön und würde mir wünschen, dass solche Initiativen Fortsetzung finden. Bleiben Sie gesund, bleiben Sie neugierig, bleiben Sie innovativ. Ihr, euer Andreas Keck vom German Mittelstand.
To do things. This bridges over to our next point. Actually, we traveled across Germany to identify the best innovation benchmarks, and you will see them now.
Es geht um das Thema Robot in the Cloud. Wir haben Transportfahrzeuge, die eine sehr aufwendige Logik enthalten, und wir verlagern diese Intelligenz und Logik des autonomen Transportfahrzeuges in die Cloud.
Wenn ich die Intelligenz auslagere, habe ich ein zentrales Gehirn, der in der Lage ist, auch wirklich Roboter oder autonom fahrende Fahrzeuge miteinander koordiniert, dass sie auch gemeinsam Aktionen durchführen.
Die Herausforderung bei autonomen Transportfahrzeugen ist, sie beinhalten sehr viel Intelligenz, diese Transportfahrzeuge. Diese Intelligenz ist teuer, kompliziert und aufwendig zu warten. Und es geht darum, das zu vereinfachen und die Intelligenz des Transportfahrzeuges, des autonomen Transportfahrzeuges in die Cloud zu verlagern. Das ist zuerst mal eine Kostenreduzierung, weil diese Transportfahrzeuge vereinfacht werden. Sie sind nicht mehr so komplex. Die Steuerung wandert aus dem Transportfahrzeug in das Cloud-System, und es ist für zukünftige Anwendungen offen. Es ist erweiterbar und einfacher zu handeln.
Warum plötzlich jetzt und nicht früher? Mit früheren Technologien hat man nicht die Möglichkeit gehabt, auch schnell Signale zu empfangen, sie zu bewerten und dann Signale zurückzusenden.
5G ist die Grundlage für solche Anwendungen. Sie haben ein latenzfreies Mobilfunknetz, und dieses latenzfreie Mobilfunknetz macht es erst möglich, diese Logik in eine Cloud zu verlagern.
Der Bernard Mobility Analyzer ist ein optisches System, das mit Hilfe von künstlicher Intelligenz automatisch Verkehrsteilnehmer auswertet und zählt. Der Bernard Mobility Analyzer wurde entwickelt, weil wir eine neue Technologie gesucht haben, mit der wir zuverlässig und in Echtzeit und datenschutzkonform Verkehrsteilnehmer auswerten können, um somit die Verkehrsplanung und Verkehrstechnik in den Städten und Kommunen zu verbessern. Wir lösen das Problem, dass wir den Stau reduzieren, indem wir den Verkehrsfluss durch unsere intelligente Optik optimieren können. Die einzelnen Verkehrsteilnehmer werden durch das im Bildmaterial durch automatische Objekterkennung erkannt. Anhand von unterschiedlichen Merkmalen der einzelnen Verkehrsklassen werden diese Verkehrsteilnehmer dann den unterschiedlichen Klassen zugeteilt, beispielsweise Pkw, Lkw, Bus und so weiter. Und diese Verkehrsteilnehmer werden dann über das gesamte Sichtfeld der Kamera sozusagen verfolgt, um die Trajektorien aufzuzeichnen, und das hilft uns dann zu identifizieren, von wo nach wo welches Fahrzeug fährt. Die Herausforderung war es, dass wir hier mit einer komplett neuen Technologie ein System eintrainieren mussten, das unter allen Bedingungen draußen funktioniert. Das heißt, es muss für alle Wetterbedingungen und alle Lichtverhältnisse optimal funktionieren. Der USP ist tatsächlich der Algorithmus der künstlichen Intelligenz, insbesondere Objekte, die kurzzeitig verdeckt werden, beispielsweise ein LKW, der kurzzeitig ein PKW abschattet, dass dieser PKW dann weiterhin als gleiches Fahrzeug wiedererkannt wird, um somit Falschzählungen auszuschließen.
Wir haben es geschafft, unsere Funktionalität der klassischen Bachmann-Connectivity für das Büro mit einer neuen, innovativen Smart Workspace-Plattform zu verheiraten. Das bedeutet, wir stellen Unternehmen ein Tool zur Verfügung, wodurch dann die Mitarbeiter über eine App von zu Hause aus oder auch im Betrieb selber freie Arbeitsplätze, Meetingräume finden und reservieren können. Ganz nebenbei ermöglichen wir im Facility Management Social Distancing, ganz wichtig heutzutage, Sicherheitsabstände zu gewährleisten, und auch das Facility Management erhält wertvolle Metadaten zur Nutzung des Gebäudes. Das Besondere ist, dass jede Hardware, also jedes J-Spot-Modul von uns mit einem eindeutigen Icon gekennzeichnet ist. Der Mitarbeiter bucht sich also nicht Arbeitsplatz Nummer 116, sondern zum Beispiel das Motorrad oder die Kaffeetasse. Das ist etwas Spielerisches und macht natürlich auch Freude in der Handhabung. Ja, die Lösung passt natürlich in die Zeit. Also wir haben bei immer mehr Firmen und auch unseren Kunden wahrgenommen, dass sich Arbeitsweisen und Arbeitsmethoden verändern. Smart Work, Hybrid Work, Desk Sharing ist in aller Munde. Gefehlt hat aber ein Tool, um es sowohl für Mitarbeiter wie auch für das Unternehmen zu managen, zu erlauben. Und das war unsere Mission. Unser USP ist, dass jedes J-Spot-Modul, das ist das Stück Hardware für jeden einzelnen Arbeitsplatz, direkt mit einer LTE-Karte ausgestattet ist und sich somit direkt mit der Cloud verbindet. Das vereinfacht natürlich den Implementierungsprozess enorm.
Hallo, mein Name ist Jens Göbel, wir sind in Dormagen bei der Tech GmbH und wir treffen uns heute, damit ich euch meine Kanaldrohne zeigen kann. Aus Gesprächen mit den Kommunen haben wir erfahren, dass die Kanalmitarbeiter während der Inspektion sich großen Gefahren aussetzen, und um diese zu schützen, haben wir das Kanalsystem mit der Drohne entwickelt. Diese Drohne ist kollisionsgeschützt aufgebaut. Das ist ein Spezialdesign, was uns ermöglicht, auch gegen Wände zu fliegen, um weiter quasi den Kanal inspizieren zu können. Unsere größte Herausforderung war die Funkstrecke, da wir unterirdisch mit sehr vielen Reflexionen zu kämpfen haben, und wir müssen gewährleisten, dass wir eine sichere Funkverbindung von dem Sender zur Drohne herstellen können. Wir sind 10-mal schneller als herkömmliche eingesetzte Mittel. Die nächsten Schritte in der Entwicklung sind für uns, dass das System autonom durch den Tunnel fliegt, ohne einen Piloten dabei zu haben. Hier allerdings werden wir noch ein bisschen Zeit benötigen, da die Sensoren, welche benötigt werden, in ihrer Größe erst schrumpfen müssen, damit diese auch sozusagen in die Systeme integriert werden können. Das Thema KI würde ich gerne kurz in 2 Sektionen aufteilen. Einmal ist es sozusagen die visuelle Bildbearbeitung, um Schadensanalysen den Kunden schneller darlegen zu können. Und das zweite ist das autonome Fliegen. Das können wir ein bisschen vergleichen wie mit Tesla auf der Straße. Allerdings fehlt uns hierfür noch ein bisschen die Größe der Sensoren. Die müssen kleiner werden, damit wir es in die kompakten Systeme integrieren können.
Eine Innovation, da kommt die Fantasie des Kindes mit einer Geschäftsidee, mit der Tüchtigkeit des Ingenieurs zusammen, um einen Bedarf besser zu bedienen, um das Leben einfacher zu machen oder sogar einen Bedarf zu kreieren und ihn zu vermarkten. Das ist für mich eine Innovation.
Eine Innovation wird dann zur Innovation im klassischen Sinne, wenn sie technisch und auch wirtschaftlich erfolgreich ist und natürlich, wenn sie neu ist. Für uns kommt da noch hinzu und für mich ganz persönlich, dass sie vor allem relevant und werttreibend für unsere Kunden sein muss. Und in diesem Sinne sind Innovationen für uns einfach Dinge, die sehr stark emotionalisieren, Themen, die auch sehr stark einfach begeistern. Innovationen sind Wegbereiter in die Zukunft.
Wichtig dabei ist, dass man neuartige Technologien und nachhaltige Technologien einsetzt, um zukunftsorientierte Lösungen zu realisieren und gleichzeitig dabei aber auch Lösungen oder Probleme löst, die man anderweitig gar nicht oder nur mit sehr hohem Aufwand lösen kann.
Was definiert für mich eine Innovation? Wenn eine frickige Idee einfach reell wird und auch funktioniert und der Kunde im Endeffekt grinst und sagt Danke für die Lösung.
Wow, wir haben gesehen, es passiert.
Wow, we can see that a lot is happening, but how can these solutions be scaled up and how can we cooperate better across industries? Here to discuss this are several experts. Before I introduce them, please use the chat and the Q&A function. Werner really wants to take up your questions. Now the panel change now. We invited very known experts, Andrea Hartmeier, Head of Marketing of Bachmann GmbH, whose video we have just seen. Welcome. The next one I introduce is Dr. Paul Rübig, former member of the European Parliament, known for his support in the field of research and innovation and for SMEs. Some may know him because of his commitment to reduce roaming charges. So he has brought us a bit closer in Europe in mobile internet. The next expert is Dirk Ramhorst. He is CIO and CDO of Wacker Chemie AG and also spokesman of the platform Arbeitswelten for Zero in Bavaria. Last but not least, Ingolf F. Brauner, President of Mittelstand in Bayern EV and Managing Director of Caviso Consulting GmbH KG. Good morning. Let me start with Dr. Rübig. We saw in the speech of David Lee that SMEs are very important, and you at EU level, what levers does the EU have to include SMEs as an important link in the value chain? What is most important is think small first, because this is very important for the value chain. 50% of the GDP comes from the SME sector, and it's important they pay 80% of taxes and provide jobs to 2/3 of the workforce, so they generate income. SMEs play a very important role in Europe, and at the level of the EU, most actions are focused on the SME sector. In the Horizon Europe program, 50% of the funds will be geared into the SMEs. We developed the program SMEs in Europe, and there is also a global network for SMEs, and I'm the president because SMEs do not have enough time to pursue policies, special policies. You mentioned this platform. I assume that different European countries have different innovation dynamics. Some may be faster, others slower. They may have different strategies. How can you manage to bring them together in this platform? We have a new European research framework, Horizon Europe, with 100 billion euros, but this is the smallest part of the European research landscape. Also, municipalities supported this development, so local government is very important, and we also paid attention to agriculture, robotics, machine learning, data harvesting, satellite and analyses. All these provide enormous opportunities.
Das Video ein bisschen, aber
now there was a discontinuation in the video. Well, until 2015, we need to feed 10 billion people, so we know what opportunities are needed in the agriculture, and we need digitization and also to use the space. You mentioned the benchmarks. To innovate, to digitize, it requires competency and capacities. Can the EU provide direct support? What can the SME sector expect? We have the Connect Europe facility, especially in the field of digitization. They provide cross-border infrastructure. We have an act of private-public partnerships because in public tenders, the focus needs to be put on SMEs, and we know that building up infrastructure is a major challenge. How do you want to organize competition? Those who have the best performance also should get the contracts, and this requires certification systems, notification systems, audit systems. These are supporting measures that are very important to us, that we can rely in our systems and that they are efficient enough. It's great that you have mentioned this. So this also answers the previous questions, how you handle the different dynamics. You work with the EU, you boosted roaming charge reduction. How do you see a need for improvement? One student once complained that when you cross a national border, that roaming charges go up enormously. And this was due to the post office monopolies. And I took this complaint seriously and made contact with the commissioner. They developed then laws. We now have 5 different directives. So it took a long time. So when you now make phone calls or use data in the EU, it's relatively transparent. But outside the EU, I also work in Japan, and when I go there, I switch off my mobile phone, because when 1 gigabyte costs €7, it may cost about 19,500 euros. So it's a huge difference. So my vision would be that each European can buy a simple SIM card. Worldwide would be best, but at least in all EU countries, and that there is a competition among the EU countries. And then I hope that this will be implemented soon.
We have talked so much about enhancing competences. Now to you, Ms. Hartmeier. We just listened to your boss, Mr. Bachmann. Innovation is the pioneer for the future, and innovation must also instill enthusiasm. Sounds good, sounds exciting, but it's probably easier said than done. What about you? How do you cope with the current situation? Well, for us, especially now, we have so many new themes and challenges that we were not aware of before. It's important to keep in mind the overarching objective. The Innovators Dilemma of Great Christensen quite aptly describes the situation. It might lead you to invest less. No, but right now is the right moment to counter these trends and to reposition oneself. Finally, successes are created in bad times, not in good times, which is a very good point. Indeed, the Innovators Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. Mr. Brauner, you as an expert for change, business and politics, what do you think about the Innovators Dilemma on the effect of the crisis on companies' innovation strategies? Well, talking about innovation culture, we need to say that our German SMEs were already very innovative in the past, but looking back how they shaped innovation and increased productivity, well, it was just a linear curve moving upwards every year. In simple terms, you had a new buzzword, you streamlined costs, you oriented yourself towards customer, you looked into new materials or other innovative issues. So step by step, a new degree of innovation was created, and that's brought the companies forward. The German SMEs in the past were anything but not innovative. They were indeed innovative, but looking at the current crisis, it's a driver for fresh innovation. No question about that. On the other hand, there are companies, not only startups, but also well-established companies, for example, by outsourcing or by affiliate companies, they might reach out, they concentrate on just one idea. They have a great idea. They try to find an investor that is able to invest money. It needs some groundwork to commit themselves to this. Anything that does not belong to the core mission, for example, production, logistics, service partners, probably even sales partners, and then they get a starting boost. This is the difference to the traditional SME, especially in Germany, where you all did it alone in your own solitude, while these new approaches are built on partnerships. They create an ecosystem around themselves after a certain advance lead, which might also bring you to a failure, but the surviving ideas will have a quick start. So the classical business model of the SME will be replaced by a new model, by the ideas that are fostered and generated in a digital ecosystem. It's not so much about the lone enterprise that thinks, how can I become successful, but I need to carry along the others. It's a very radical new approach to make oneself redundant as an entrepreneur. This is quite inconvenient as a truth. Let me explore that more in depth. Probably a small and medium company may not have the capacities. They will not be able to set up a task force. They cannot outsource concrete innovative processes to service providers. Talking from your practical viewpoint, how can entrepreneurs go about this dilemma if they do not have the capacities? Good question. Radical new approach, well, I think we need to go that way, because if we continue like in the past, we will end up in failure. Only a small company can take this radically new approach. We need to define a playing field where you can move in a creative way, and you need to muster the resources. A huge company may also set up a task force. Okay, let's give them leeway. We define their playing ground without having to give answers to anybody. They can create their own ideas. They may even bring ideas to the point of no return. A small company has not the same wealth of options, but they have other options. They might look at the options. A 50,000 euro sum may be a huge sum for a small company. But for big companies, it's nothing. But so the big companies are in a separate bubbles from the small and medium companies. They are in their own bubble, which is a big problem. We see this in our association or in our confederation. SMEs and large corporations rarely meet at the same conference. So we need to take stock of the experience of the SME, and we need to bring in also young startups, not only young startups, but startups in general. We need to bring them together. SMEs and startups may do a lot. If the two cannot be big enough together, I would tell the entrepreneur, so then go into a retreat on a mountain and just let your ideas roam. Your friend is supposed to look at your own difficulty with his own or her own eyes. This might bring forth radically new ideas, creative ideas. We must go these ways. So probably, I would say, in such at close quarters on the mountain, you might invite also a startup, or you might integrate also a manager from another company. Who now, Mr. Brauner focused very much on the SMEs and also on the integration of startups. Mr. Adamo, you are an expert on innovation, and Wacker, I would say, is not necessarily a small and medium enterprise. Still, you are faced with similar challenges. While in the past you innovated for its own sake, while now innovation and innovation strategies are the best way to cope with the new normal. How would you describe your starting point, the new starting point? Well, what matters to us very much is the issue of innovation and digitizing. They are not limited to the question of home office. Of course, yes, our employees work in home offices wherever possible, but for us as a company, it's important to keep our manufacturing process up and running. So we try to make sure that anybody working from the home office and all those who do not work in the office space can work hand in hand with the office workers, so as to minimize the risk of infection. But we have countless examples in the world of digitization where the issue of data plays a different role. Data with respect of understanding the value of data, engineering data, machine data, data from the design process. There, for example, in the area of artificial intelligence, we were able to transfer ideas from the pharmaceutical or chemical industry that are normally dependent on a sequential structure. We could simulate them and replicate them in a much faster way. One example from the first lockdown in Korea, we commissioned a factory. Normally, a group of experts would have traveled to Korea. It was simply not possible. There was was no flight available at the time. There was no logistics. So we put into operation this factory, well, with the classical tool of video conferencing, but also by setting up in our central engineering facility a digital twin of this new factory. So all parameters could be taken from, or could be inspected from Germany, and we could also instruct the Korean colleagues on what to do now. So we put this new factory into operation in a new way, similar to the critical infrastructure. We were also part of a critical infrastructure in fighting the pandemic. So these are just two examples that tell you how these new technologies will continue to be used, to come back to your question, but certainly we are going to see much more future in a hybrid environment. Let me ask back, in a very concrete sense, you described the situation from a Wacker perspective. You have also accrued a lot of experience. What would you pass on to the SMEs from the wealth of your experience in terms of advice? Well, this is enough for an entire evening of conferences, but one thing we have learned from the corona pandemic, the impossible is possible. Well, we have also seen so many examples from Hollywood, but we have also seen issues, and it was also described in so many articles that the pandemic served as an accelerator for so many innovative issues. It can be seen here, there's a new start to take a look at the things that are deemed impossible should be considered a booster. The other thing is the example that I described. Wacker is just a little example, but so many service providers were involved. I think it's utterly important now to think much more in an interconnected way. We see it also in the economy as a whole. Many things cannot be dealt with on their own. On the G20 summit, the Chancellor called upon us to work in a much more networked way. This applies also to SMEs. In the sense of supply chains or partner networks with suppliers, with customers, just get things into moving, change things together, because they are no longer possible the way we did it in the past. Well, a follow-up question, please. How projects can be confronted in a new way. Customer focus is certainly also a buzzword in Wacker, although you are rather moving in B2B relations. How can you keep in contact with your end customers? We are, as an end consumer brand, are not visible for the citizen at large. Looking at the pictures of our panelists, I would guess that we are behind the screen or in the textile or wherever. I would say we are present there in a hidden way. So the challenge is to be involved very early on in the design process of our customers. The team members, the engineers, the research experts are trained for the benefit of our customers. We do this in the Wacker Academy, which is almost a traditional academy or like a university. It would not be possible in the old way. We had to switch to the digital. We created workstations with cameras where our employees could train the customers how to apply our products. And we did this 1,000 of times with concrete, detailed courses or with rather general training seminars. In the past, this was hardly possible. But now, this new normal that we are talking about will be the leading way into the future. Well, this is quite an exciting idea. I would like to pass this on to Ms. Hartmeier. I know that customer focus is very important at Bachmann's. You do not have a Bachmann Academy. What do you rely on to not lose contact with the market? Well, we at Bachmann's to try to improve life quality every day, wherever we are. In Asia, we have learned, by the way, this is also the case in China. We are working in a very customer-focused way. How do we do that? Well, we are in constant contact and regular contact with partners and customers. among other things, through the Innovation Board on our premises. We try to look into the shoes or into the positions of our customers. Probably customers do not know what they are going to need in the future, which is a very good approach. You did this also with the yacht spot, correct? Yes, correct. You asked your customers. I would like to learn from you, what about internal innovation process in the course of the current situation? How did you adjust your processes? Could you act more swiftly? What are your experiences at Bachmann? Well, at Bachmann, we have innovations cropping up in much faster sprints. Speed is of the essence. Still, we need the necessary time to fulfill our premium commitment and to satisfy our customers. Another very important point is that, yes, of course, we work with our innovation teams in-house, but we are also increasingly committed to global co-development as an SME, also with some startups. Yes, in YachtSpot, this did play a role, but also with universities and technology colleges all around the world. This has really changed over the past months. So, all panelists, if I look around, Mr. Brauner, Ms. Hartmeier, Mr. Ramhorst kept saying it is important to bet on the networks and to cooperate inside networks. My question goes now to Mr. Rübig. If our viewers tell us, well, sounds great, networking, but can I just enter a URL? Is there any program where all players from corporate to SMEs to startup can be brought together on a European level? For example, a program where you just can register?
Of course, there is one. I'm also in the board of the European Board of Technology based in Budapest. There we have different innovation units where we deal with the triangular between business, research, and policies, where we try to implement researches and promote universities. We just heard from Prime Minister Kurz that there will be a new university just dealing with this issue, and cooperation with the European Institute of Technology and the European Innovation Fund with a budget of about 10 billion euros. So in this research program, Horizon Europe, which is the biggest one in the world, we specifically dealt with the question of digitization, also in the health system and in the field of mobility and production. So we have set priorities in all of these areas in order to enable cooperations with startups, SMEs, universities, and research institutes, and to offer a network architecture. So I can only call upon you that we are very active in social networks, so we can really offer a global network. So a call to social media, I can only subscribe to it. If you've got questions, you can do it now. Ask questions directly to our panelists. Use, please, the chat function or Q&A. First, a question to all of you. If we see the current situation as a great opportunity, well, the current atmosphere is dominated more by uncertainty. So it's up to the political level to create confidence and trust. So what is your expectation from the political level so that the SME can make the commitment to invest in the digital decade for European SMEs? Mrs. Hartmeier. What is especially important are reliable framework conditions. We need to know where we will go so that we can think ahead into the future. From a marketing perspective, I would like to see incentives for especially innovative SMEs. This might also motivate people not to slacken their efforts. I think many will agree to this. Mr. Browner, also to you, perhaps more from the perspective of a representative of the SME sector. What do you expect from the political level? Well, we have just developed a position paper to see Corona as an opportunity. What we expect is more entrepreneurial courage to develop visions, goals, and to give kind of guidelines to the SME sectors in what direction to develop. This creates security, and everything that follows suit needs to be within this framework. So one issue talking about Corona support programs, so these programs are good, but actually you boost standstill. What we would need is transformation support. We have to get away from standstill support into a situation where companies really adapt their business models. So also more certainty by support programs. Mr. Ramhorst, you from the perspective of a transformation pioneer, what would you like to see? I take up what the previous speaker said, reliable framework conditions with regard to data. I mean, we already have the basic data protection directive, but what about machine data? Who is the owner, and that they are provided via Gaia X? And the second point mentioned by Mr. Browner, the support for transformation. It's important because I think entrepreneurs should not rely on politicians alone. Resilience is something you have to build up yourself. What I have to do from an IT perspective at Wacker is to respond to this resilience. So these are things where we can have an impact. Mr. Rübig, you as an impulse setter in the EU, what do you expect? I think especially the issue of globalization and international competition, the value chain are very significant because this creates wealth. In import, there you buy better, and in export. So this leads to a double increase of the purchasing power. I myself, when I was a student, I wrote my doctoral thesis about international patent and license policies. So I would like to see that copyright laws are modernized at the EU level so that we have common framework conditions. And I'm also the rapporteur for intellectually property and for the European research framework. So I very intensely discuss with this issue, and the Economic and Monetary Committee is an important partner. I think we have a strong partner in the European Commission. that with Guestpass, the group dealing with future issue can provide good solutions to problems. Well, now, Werner, did we receive questions? Thank you also to the group for the lively discussion and the food for thought. I've got a question, I think probably directed to Ingolf. Ingolf, how can you get change into the mindset of the workforce? How can you take them along? It's a very good question, and it's difficult to answer this in a brief period, but it's one of the most important questions, because to change a company without taking the workforce along would lead into disaster. I mentioned a new mindset, how to make a company redundant. This also needs to take the workforce along. It's important to be open right from the beginning and to involve the employees. Often you do not know how many ideas the employees will develop when you create an open playing field. So in total, it's very important to involve the workforce. Of course, there are some employees who are not so open to change, but you also have to take them on board. You will not be able to change each individual, so the people also have responsibility, but in total the most important thing is to take employees along and not just to develop new ideas in a kind of ivory tower. So again, to work and cooperate together. This is very important in the business sector. I've got a question probably directed to Andrea or Dirk. How can you develop a digitization project across countries? Well, there are, of course, commonalities and differences. It's a bit similar to what Ingolf has said. Here you also have to take people on board early on. So classical project management, right from the beginning, to look at the individual needs, the conditions in the different markets, and either you have to organize different projects that can come together later. So it's communication, and digitization is sometimes also something new for many of us. You have to embark on new ways, you innovate, and of course it differs from country to country, but at the end it needs to be a unity. And what about you at Wacker? Do you agree or do you have different experience? I can just confirm what Andrea said. It's not a replacement of one size fits all. Let's take the example of how to handle mobile telephony. It's quite different in Asia. So there they always think mobile first before they think of other networks. So here you can see the different regional differences, and they can be used to build some lighthouse projects. And this is what we did with our digitization. It was not only driven from Germany, but we placed the lighthouses globally.
Perfect, thank you. Mike, next question goes to Paul. What is the role played by 5G in establishing a Europe-wide digital infrastructure? Buzzword, European Connected Facility. Well, 5G is yet another step in digitization. I believe that many new applications will be generated. And of course, 5G will be rolled out globally, so we will become interconnected more and more. Right now, we are working on standards for 6G, so the train never stops. The digital space STOA is a technical options assessment by the European Parliament. We looked at the variety of options. Yes, of course, it's just about keeping the infrastructure state of the art. And we are seeing this increasingly, how real world is reflected in virtual world, with the only difference that the virtual world can be calculated much better than the real world. Moving around in the digital world, those digital twins, machine learning, and so many innovative technologies that have become part and parcel of our everyday life is also a very principled question. For example, ethics in robotics. We've just heard it. Who carries the responsibility effectively whenever machines take decisions? At the end of the day, it's about rolling out a legal framework and a legal space for this new 5G technologies. New standards need to be put into place, and politics need to learn how new parameters are created. It's very exciting to see in the political environment that very fundamental questions are asked. Huge research efforts are being undertaken. For example, inside the European Parliament, in the European Parliament's Service Department, 300 interdisciplinary scientists are providing input to the decision makers. I think professionality needs to be boosted in future, so that we can keep abreast of the latest developments in the cutting-edge technology. Because the risk is looming that a very small elite will take over the controls over the algorithms, while the crowds and masses are not taken along. So consumer protection will play an increasing role in the future. Thank you very much for those questions. And for the answers, looking at the clock, I must say we need to keep a watchful eye on the ticking clock. Well, probably you can give an answer afterwards, offline. Well, we will get back to this. There were quite some exciting questions. Thank you very much to the round of panelists. It has been a great pleasure. Exciting stories. What I learned was the importance of entrepreneurial spirit, but we also need political courage. That should be also sent out as a message. Huge questions, waiting for answers from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much, dear panelists. My pleasure. Thanks for having us. Ciao. Bye-bye. Now, the next item is welcome to Dr. Opitz. He is director at Arthur de Little. He will present an expert opinion on the dynamics of innovation in the EU.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to present to you today a novel approach to digital transformation and policy reform. We at Arthur de Little are convinced that improving digital infrastructure should be central to national ICT policy. Yet while every country is increasing its investment in digital infrastructure, many are not able to fully benefit from such investments. Successful digital economies require a whole range of infrastructure and capabilities, but countries often have scarce resources and finite funds. Choosing and prioritizing focus areas is therefore key. Hence, I begin with the recognition and definition of country archetypes, designed to act as a reference model that countries can adapt based on their current situation. On this slide, you can see the different archetypes we developed. Let me focus on two of them. You can find the full report with the explanation of all archetypes on both Huawei's and Arthur D. Little's website. Innovation Hub. Countries in this archetype capture the highest value from the ICT industry. They are leaders in conceptualizing and developing new technologies and commercializing innovative solutions based on them. They are home to global digital giants and can foster technology-enabled startups. Countries like the US, Sweden, or South Korea match this archetype. We here in Germany belong to the efficient prosumers archetype. Such countries are niche players that innovate and deploy solutions for dominant local industries. They focus their efforts on developing technology solutions that will enhance the competitiveness of a single or a few economic sectors within their countries. For instance, Germany is heavily invested in digitalizing manufacturing, including the automotive and machine building sectors, and pursuing Industry 4.0 at large. One size does not fit all when it comes to digital policies, as every country is unique or can be characterized by a distinct set of national digital traits. Policymakers need to formulate policies, laws, and regulations across 4 interrelated dimensions: technology, capabilities, ecosystem, and industry, corresponding to the archetype of the respective country. I cannot go through an assessment of all key policy areas now, but with respect to Germany, and especially to SMEs, it's clear that we are lagging behind in some areas, but are leading in other areas. For different reasons, we are lagging behind when it comes to e-government, as the foundation of a company is still too cumbersome, to e-education, as we have probably all experienced during the pandemic, and to the availability of VC capital. Let us now take a closer look on what Germany is doing with regard to Industry 4.0. First, stakeholder coordination. Really worth to mention is, besides the Digital Council consulting our government, the Platform 4.0, which has been in place for many years, shaping the digital transformation of manufacturing. They developed a vision for Industry 4.0 in 2030, formulate strategies, foster international cooperation, and provide special services for SMEs. Second, startups and SME support. More than 400 digital excellence centers have been set up and provide learning and testing facilities for Industry 4.0 applications. Also, a 2 billion government-backed VC fund for technology startups for the next 10 years has been brought to life. Third, tailored education. This is an area where Germany is particularly strong in vocational education. In-house vocational training is encouraged through grants to private sector. Industry 4.0 apprenticeships for students to learn specialist applied technology skills are being offered. And digital infrastructure for schools will be funded with 4 billion, something which is overdue for years. Fourth, technology investments. A couple of initiatives like 11 billion investment to provide full gigabit network coverage by 2025 nationwide, also overdue. The launch of the Federal Data Infrastructure Project, GAIA-X. The pledge to invest 3.4 billion to become an AI leader for manufacturing. And finally, 250 million investment for research in IoT and CPS. So overall, many initiatives paying off on the efficient prosumer archetype, with some to-dos left open. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Opitz, for this strategic insight into innovative dynamics of the EU, which brings us to the closing round of our event. I have learned so many things. We have seen Europe has a stable network. It has got so many innovation and technology drivers. So nothing prevents us from ushering in the digital decade for the SMEs. Well, my last act here is to extend my thanks to you, Werner. So it has been exciting for me too. There is so much innovative power. Let's knuckle down to work. Knuckle down to work. We have seen this also in our panelists. Thank you very much to our panelists. And to you, dear viewers, without you, without the European SME Huawei Innovation Day would not have been the success that it has become. Thank you to you. Stay healthy and have a good time. Ciao, servus.
Thank you.